This is TWiT. I showed a new box that had arrived at my lab. It was an unboxing, didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Wasn't really expecting anything, but it was Synology sending me one of their newest NASs, their most highly performing NASs, but with a twist. A 10 gig Ethernet card.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen you quite as giddy. It seemed like you're opening a present on Christmas.
There was some giddiness. There was some giddiness. I mean, because I've got a 10 gig network at home, but I don't have 10 gig devices.
Right.
And of all the devices in my network, the one that could use it the most
is your NAS.
Is the NAS, because that's where all the files are. That's where I'm going to be having the heavy transfers. I mean, yeah, a 10 gig router, that's probably not going to do you so much good. No. A 10 gig camera, well, I hope it's not using 10 gig, but the central point of storage for all the devices on my network, yeah, I think that's worth it.
Yeah, and it's a nice looking box, and then also, I think the part that I've always been impressed with since moving on to the Synology router was the software package.
Oh yeah. That has really changed, because I used to be a QNAP guy. I was big in the QNAP. I was also big in the ReadyNAS. Those are solid products. I mean, they do things very, very well. They're well built. But the thing about Synology, it's that ecosystem of plugins. The plugins are fantastic. Everything from Plex to things like DNS or VPN servers. Yeah. You can really get in there. And I mean, my network wouldn't work without the 1513 that I have in my network, because that runs containers. So when I run a browser, it's running in a container off that NAS.
And you're going to need speed for that.
It's got to go fast, Brian.
So now that you've had time to play with it, what did you think?
Well, I could talk about it, or I could just show you. Synology has impressed me year after year with network-attached storage boxes that define the SMB industry with an almost impossible combination of speed, reliability, richness of features, and affordability. They even managed to bring their NAS expertise to the incredibly crowded router market, and instantly became one of the top providers of premium home networking equipment. So, when we received the Synology DS1517 Plus, expectations were high. This $700 and up box looks a lot like the exceptional 1515 Plus it replaces, but the question was, would it deliver more? The answer, yes, but also, it depends. They both have 5 drive bays. They both have 4 gigabit Ethernet ports with link aggregation that allows them to be bonded, assuming you have a capable switch for higher bandwidth. They both have 4 USB 3.0 ports and 2 eSATA ports that can be used either for single drive expansion or for connecting up to 10 drives into expansion chassis. They both are powered by quad-core 64-bit Intel Atom C2538 processors running at 2.4 GHz, and they both run the same DSM operating system. After a peek inside, however, it becomes clear that the 1517 Plus is the evolved form of the 1515 Plus. Both have upgradable memory, but while the 1515 Plus tops out at 6 GB, the 1517 Plus can be expanded to 16 GB of dual-channel memory. Both units have the ability to use an SSD as a cache to speed transfers, but while the 1515 Plus needs to use up one of its drive bays to take advantage of that feature, the 1517 Plus can use a dual M.2 SSD adapter to give you even more performance than a SATA SSD, while allowing you to continue using your 5th drive bay for more storage. Most importantly, for network geeks like myself who are chomping at the bit for just a little extra something, the DS1517 Plus has an open Gen 2 x 8 PCIe slot that can be populated with a 10 gig Ethernet adapter. In the case of our review unit, Synology has equipped the box with a dual SFP Plus card, perfect for top-of-rack operation. But if you want to use one of the less expensive 10 gig RJ45 options, the 1517 Plus also supports third-party cards that can sell for under $200. I use an SFP Plus cable and an SFP Plus desktop card to link up, mirroring what will probably be the norm for at least a while in the SMB space. 10 gig switches still tend to be a bit too expensive. Okay, so how fast is fast? Well, you're not going to get 10 gigabit per second speed, but the results were still very impressive. With my default setup with 3 drives, I clocked a read performance of 450 megabytes per second read and a write speed of 310 megabytes per second write. That's 3600 megabits per second read and 2480 megabits per second write, versus the 800 megabits per second read and 500 megabits per second write that I expect from 1 gig Ethernet. However, using an all-SSD setup and maxing out the memory brought performance to a stratospheric 1,112 megabytes per second read, and 462 megabytes per second write, or almost 9,000 megabits per second read and 3,700 megabits per second write. In other words, damn. Now, I know that some of our audience need the alphabet spec soup, so here we go. The DS1517 Plus supports 2.5-inch hard drives and SSDs, as well as 3.5-inch drives up to 10 terabytes for a max of 50 terabytes in chassis storage. Everything is powered by an internal 200-watt power supply. It has 4 RJ45 gigabit Ethernet ports, 4 USB 3.0 ports, 3 in the back, 1 in the front, and 2 eSATA ports. It can be configured for link aggregation or port failover. It can read FAT, exFAT, HFS, NTFS, ext3 and 4, and BTRFS file systems, configured into JBOD, RAID 0 through 10, as well as Synology's hybrid RAID. It can act as an iSCSI target for up to 32 devices and supports 256 iSCSI LUNs. Maximum volume size using the expansion chassis is 108 terabytes. It measures 166 millimeters by 250 millimeters by 243 millimeters and weighs about 4.5 kilos. Now that may cover raw hardware, but let's get into the software. Our Review 1517 Plus is running DSM 6.1. As much as I like the hardware, it's Synology's operating system that really makes their NAS special because it's so flexible. Want to run your network storage services entirely off the 1517 Plus? You can do that with support for up to 2,048 local users, 256 local groups, and 512 shared folders. Or you can integrate it with your 802.x ACL NFS authentication. Want to segment your network? You can individually assign each of the 4 Ethernet ports or use VLANs. Want to secure your network? Run your own email server with up to 90 clients and 20 VPN connections. That's the beauty of Synology's approach. Use it the way you want, with just the features you need. Speaking of need, I need to talk about the Synology plugin ecosystem because that is special in its field. DSM has the ability to expand the feature set with plugins that can run entirely in the OS, as well as using specialized hardware in the DS1517 Plus. Want a security camera network? Grab a few IP cameras and install Surveillance Station. You get 2 licenses out of the box and can constantly monitor, record, and notify for 10 cameras at about $50 per additional camera. Are you a cord cutter who wants to create an over-the-air network DVR? Get an inexpensive USB digital receiver and install any of a number of plugins to automatically record and stream your favorite OTA programming. Have a dead spot in your Wi-Fi coverage? Plug in a USB Wi-Fi adapter and turn your NAS into a hotspot, or why not get a 4G USB dongle to provide failover internet connectivity to your network? Want to run your own cloud office suite? Well, that's completely free, and combined with the VPN capabilities, you now have the option of having Google Docs or Office 365-like cloud convenience with the peace of mind of knowing that your data stays on your network. Or perhaps you're a media junkie and you want all your movies, music, and photos to be available to you at all times for free. Again, grab a plugin that uses the hardware transcoding capability of Synology NASes, and you're good to go. From security apps to containers, DNS servers to media organizers, there's probably more than a few Synology plugins that will be exactly what you were looking for. And that's true if you're a networking newbie who just wants a way to see your photos on your phone, or a grizzled IT guy who is over everything. In short, the price is right, the performance is exceptional, and the feature set is flexible. In fact, the only reason why the purchase of a 1517 Plus is a depends is if you already have a 1515. And we are back. Okay, so this is quite possibly the best NAS I currently have. Actually, not quite possibly. It is the best NAS I currently have in circulation. It is so flexible, it is so fast, and pretty much it does everything I want out of a NAS. I could probably retire 2 or 3 of the arrays and just replace it with
just use this. That's how highly you regard this.
Yeah, this is really good.
It's a nice looking machine too, and it's got everything you would need.
This is what happens when you keep iterating on a product rather than trying to make a brand new product category. I mean, Synology, they already amazed me when they came out with a router that was actually really, really good. I mean, it wasn't a commodity. It was actually something that built on their experience with NAS boxes. This box, it's, I would run this in an enterprise.
Nice.
With a 10 gig interface, this would absolutely be suitable to run things like VMs straight off of the array.
Right.
And it's at a price that, it's not out of the reach of the
what is the
ordinary
price
human.
on it?
Now, it depends. Okay, so it's with drives or without drives. You're going to be looking between 1,000 and 2,000. Depending on how you want to equip this thing, and that's not bad. That's
no, for the kind of hardware that you get with it, that's not bad. But I think for me, or maybe even your average NAS user, it's not just that they threw a bunch of hardware into the box. It's that it's also paired with the interface and the software that I'm now more familiar with using the router. But they blend over, and when it makes it easy to do stuff with the hardware, that makes all the difference.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to say, the support that I've gotten from Synology has been, bar none, the best in the industry, even better than QNAP, and QNAP is pretty good. And what I've done in the past is I will not register this under my name, so they don't know it's me. And then I'll call with typical issues that a NAS user might have, and they can answer it every single time.
Very cool.
I got to tell you, if they could bring this down to like the price of the 1500s, this would be the no-brainer.